大家好，很抱歉哈，我们因为电脑的原因延迟了几分钟。请大家往前坐好吗？因为后边可能还有陆续的人会进来。请后边的往前坐一坐，谢谢你们。我们这场讲座呢，是我们硅谷回音 Bay Echo Association 来举办的，主办哈主。我们这次的讲员呢，主要是有4个今年12年级的高中毕业生，他们来分享他们自己高中的实际的经验哈，他们会分享不同的方面。我们的第一个讲员呢是雷文凯凯文雷，他是 Limburg 12年级的学生。他今年呢，他是在数学，他数学是从8年级开始，连续如果今年加上就连续5年是 USMO 哈，USMO 是全世界是500个，是不是凯文？250个人哈，全世界250个人。凯文从8年级开始，每年都在这250个人里边，也拿到了生物的奥林匹克奖，物理的奥林匹克的也是 semi-final 的奖，还有一个就是Olympiad Computer Science 的金奖。我们现在就把时间交给凯文。
OK， 大家好。Okay, so my name is Kevin Lay, and today I'm going to talk about my experiences with the various Olympiads and how to prepare for them. Okay, so there are 6 Olympiads in the United States. There's the USAMO, which is the Math Olympiad, the USACO, the Computing Olympiad. It's also the Informatics Olympiad, but it's called the Computing Olympiad in the United States. There's the USA PHO, which is the Physics Olympiad, the USA BO, the Biology Olympiad, the USA NCO, which is the Chemistry Olympiad, and the last one is the NACLO, which is the North American Computing Linguistics Olympiad. The last one is kind of small, but it still counts as an Olympiad. These are the national Olympiads. If you do really well on the national Olympiads, you can compete in the international events. The corresponding international events are the IMO, IOI, IPHO, IBO, ICHO, and ILO. The international events are highly competitive. For each event, only 4 or 6 students from each country get to compete. So if you get to compete, you have a very high chance. You're basically one of the best students in the world in that subject. And if you do qualify, you're basically guaranteed an Ivy League. Okay. So a lot of people want to know what the secret to doing well on an Olympiad is. And there's really only one secret. It's practice. So I know all of you have heard the expression, practice makes perfect, but this is really an understatement. Whenever you see someone do well in an Olympiad, it's not because they're smart. It could be because they're smart, but usually it's not. The reason they're doing well is because they have practice. They have done a lot of problems in the past, and they're very experienced. You can look at the people who do well in each subject, and you might think they're really smart and they're just a genius, but in reality, you haven't seen the hundreds or thousands of hours of hard work they've put behind the scenes that allowed them to achieve that result. But of course, starting early helps as well. Because if you start early, then you have more time to practice, and that way you'll be more experienced in the future. So now I'm going to give a rundown of each Olympiad and the basics and how to qualify and prepare for them. So the first one I want to talk about is the math, or the USAMO. This is probably the biggest of the 6 Olympiads. To qualify for the USAMO, you have to go through a series of tests, starting with the AMC 10 and the AMC 12. If you do well on those tests, you can qualify for the AIME. And if you qualify for the AIME and do well, you can make the USAMO or the USAJMO. This event is the biggest because there are probably 100,000 people each year who take the AMCs, but only 250 students get to qualify for the USAMO. The best way to prepare for the USAMO is to do past problems. I've linked the website below. You shouldn't have to copy these links down, because in the end, if you want the links, you can send me an email and I can share the presentation with you. The second way to prepare is to look at the books. The Art of Problem Solving series has a really excellent series on how to prepare for the math competitions. The most basic books are the Art of Problem Solving volumes 1 and 2. These give a really comprehensive view of what to prepare for the Olympiads, and they're very basic, but they help overall. The next one is the Computing Olympiad, or the USACO. The USACO has 3 levels: USACO Bronze, Silver, and Gold. The USACO is structured a bit differently from the other Olympiads because instead of taking the tests sequentially, there are actually 6 tests in 1 year. You start out at Bronze. If you do well at Bronze, for the next test, they can promote you and you'll go to Silver. If you do well at Silver, you'll go to Gold. And then at the end of the year, if you do well on Gold, you might have a chance of making the IOI. The best way to prepare for the USACO is the USACO training. There's a special website to train for this. It's called USACO Training, and they provide a very thorough guide of how to prepare for it, and they give you a lot of problems. But if you don't want to do USACO training, there are a bunch of online websites that help you prepare for these kinds of problems. There's Topcoder, Codeforces, and SPOJ, just to name a few. These are not just for USACO training. The types of problems you'll see on USACO are very similar to the interview questions or something you might encounter if you're a computer science major in the future. So if you do well on USACO, you'll have no problem finding a job at a major company. Next one is physics. So the USA PHO. The first test is F equals MA, which is a multiple choice physics test. If you do well on F equals MA, usually if you get about half to 3/4 of the problems right, then you can qualify for the semifinals exam. The semifinals exam is not multiple choice, it's free response, and it's much, much harder. But if you do well on the semifinals exam, you can qualify for the IPHO. The way to prepare for physics is, once again, do past Olympiads. Past Olympiads really are the best way to prepare because every time you take an Olympiad test, the problems are very similar to what you'll see before. So if you do a lot of problems from past Olympiads, you'll be very familiar with the content and you'll do well in the future. Unfortunately, there aren't that many past Olympiads available online for physics, so another alternate choice is the Hong Kong Physics Olympiad, and they have a bunch of problems that are very similar to the USA PHO. The next one is biology, or the USA BO. This one starts with the USABO Open, which is, once again, a multiple choice test. If you do well on this, you can qualify for the USABO semifinals, and if you do well on that, you can go for the IBO. Once again, there are past Olympiads, but in addition to past Olympiads, you can also use the AP Biology textbook. I've heard that the AP Biology textbook is very, very helpful for this test. If you know everything in the AP Biology textbook by heart, you'll have no trouble making the semifinals, and you'll have a good shot for the IBO. Unfortunately, the textbook is about 1,000 something pages long, and on each page it's crammed with a bunch of information, so it's very difficult to be familiar with all the information. The next one is the Chemistry Olympiad. The Chemistry Olympiad is kind of difficult to qualify for in the Bay Area because the selection process starts with a local exam, or the ACS local Olympiads. If you do well on that, you can qualify for the National Olympiads. But the local exams means that only 8 people from each region get to qualify for the national event, and only 2 people from each school get to qualify for the local, which means that if you're from a really strong region like the Bay Area, it's much more difficult to qualify for the national exam if you were, say, in the middle of Iowa. Once again, you can do past Olympiads or read AP textbooks. The last one is linguistics, which is North American Computational Linguistics Olympiad. It starts with round 1, and then if you do well on round 1, you can go for round 2. Linguistics Olympiad is very different from the other Olympiads because it's very difficult to prepare for. The Linguistics Olympiad is really closer to a logic test or an IQ test than it is to a test of knowledge. These tests, essentially, they give you a foreign language or a made-up language, and they want you to decipher it. And it's really an exercise in critical thinking and logic, so there's no real way to prepare for it. However, you can do past Olympiads, which they have provided on their website, and you can do a lot of reading, and that might help too. The last thing I want to talk about is like pressuring your child to do these things or not to do these things. So I think, well, I said before that the most important thing was to practice, but you shouldn't force your child to practice. If you look at any successful Olympiad, and you look at the people who have succeeded in those Olympiads, sure, they've done a lot of problems and they've put a lot of hard work into them, but it's not because their parents forced them to or someone else forced them to. It's because they genuinely like that subject. They have a passion for that subject and they're willing to do it. For me, for example, when I go home and I look at a math problem, I want to do that math problem and I think it's fun for me to do that math problem. So when I go down and I take a 3-hour studying session for math, it's actually quite a fun event, and I really enjoy it. So if your child is passionate about a subject, you should help him and motivate him to do it. But if he really doesn't like it and you push him, that might actually have detrimental results. Thank you for listening to my lecture. If you want to contact me for further information or to get the information I've presented on the slides, my email is kevinlay2000@gmail.com. Thank you.
Kevin 稍微等一下哈，我有几个问题，那个Jennifer，请你先上来准备。Kevin 呢，现在是12年级的学生，12年级的学生到这个时间呢，应该是轻松很多了。但是 Kevin 呢，他很愿意把他所知道的分享给大家。他在我们那个Bay Echo，还有我们其实还有一个春晖教育中心哈，他在那边也跟我们分享了，也其实前段时间也开过一个讲座。到前面 OK。Kevin 也跟我们办过一个讲座，专门分享过数学，就是从初中开始怎么样去走数学的路，父母该怎么样帮助孩子，还有一个就是数学的summer camp， 在数学类有哪些该怎么样挑选哈。我们每个月呢都会有这样的就是这一类的讲座。下一次我们的讲座呢会是在谈 summer camp， 就是各种各样的 summer camp 该怎么样选择，该怎么样规划孩子的 summer 的 program。我们时间地点都没有定下来，所以如果说在我们 Bay Echo 的 mailing list 的人呢，你们其实应该会收到哈。不在的话，等会儿到外边硅谷会议的柜台上把你们的 email 留下来，我们可以发给你。Kevin 在我们那里现在还教了3门课，一门课呢叫 Java Programming Computer Science， 还有一个呢就是对 Middle School 的数学，怎么样帮助 Middle School 的孩子，数学竞赛类的是吧？我们家那个儿子呢，7年级，一直不是喜欢数学竞赛，他就在外边坐着哈。上个星期第一次让他拉去上 Kevin 的课，进去之前是逼着进去的，真的把他赶进去了。但是出来的时候高高兴兴，他说我以后还要继续上 Kevin 的课。Jennifer 准备。